The massive viewing screen inside the Imperial Council chamber showed a small blue planet, seemingly insignificant among the countless worlds under Empire control. Yet something about this world made the council members shift uneasily in their seats. High Commander Marcus stood before the assembled council, his golden uniform gleaming under the bright lights. This species calls themselves humans, and their world is known as Earth, he said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. Our scout ships detected their presence after noticing unusual radio signals from their sector. The council members watched as the screen displayed images of Earth's orbital installations, satellites, and the primitive-looking ships that moved between them. Some council members laughed quietly at the sight of chemical rockets and nuclear-powered vessels. They are barely at level 2 on the technological scale, Marcus continued, still relying on combustion and nuclear fission for space travel. Their weapons are primarily kinetic and chemical-based. They haven't even developed basic energy shields. Head Counselor Robert leaned forward, his ancient eyes narrowing. Yet you called this emergency meeting. Why? Marcus pressed a button, and new images appeared on the screen. They showed massive industrial complexes covering entire continents, orbital shipyards stretching hundreds of kilometers, and vast mining operations across their solar system. This is why, Marcus said. Their industrial capacity is unlike anything we've seen. They build ships faster than some of our most developed worlds. Their population is in the billions, and they've spread to every corner of their solar system in less than 200 years. The chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. A species with such industrial might, even with primitive technology, could not be ignored. There's more, Marcus added, his voice growing serious. We received this transmission when our scout ships were detected. The screen changed again, showing a human in a dark blue uniform. Admiral James Stone of Earth's United Defense Force stood straight and spoke with quiet confidence. To the unknown vessels observing our system, we, the people of Earth, acknowledge your presence. We are a young species by galactic standards, but we are not naive. Our history is filled with war, and we have learned its cost. We do not seek conflict, but we are always prepared for it. This is both a greeting and a warning. Approach with peaceful intentions, and you will find friends. Come with thoughts of conquest, and you will understand why even our entertainment is filled with stories of apocalyptic wars. The choice is yours. Murmurs filled the chamber. No primitive species had ever dared to address the Empire in such a manner. Head Counselor Robert stood slowly. Commander Marcus, your assessment. They are primitive but dangerous, Marcus replied. Their weapons may be basic, but they have perfected them. Their ships are crude but numerous. Most concerning is their mentality. They think like warriors, plan like generals, even in peacetime. Are you suggesting we fear them? A younger council member called out mockingly. Marcus shook his head. Fear? No. Respect their potential. Yes. In all our history of expanding the Empire, we've never encountered a species that developed with constant internal warfare. Most civilizations we met had unified before reaching space. Humans, they'd brought their conflicts to the stars. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some called for immediate action to subjugate this upstart species. Others urged caution, suggesting diplomatic approaches. Head Counselor Robert raised his hand for silence. We are the Galactic Empire. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. We will not be threatened by primitives, no matter how industrious they may be. He turned to Marcus. Send a battle group. Show them proper Imperial discipline. That should suffice to bring them into the fold. As the council members filed out, Marcus lingered, watching the image of Earth rotating slowly on the screen. Something about Admiral Stone's warning bothered him. It wasn't the words themselves, but the calm certainty behind them. In his 10,000 years of service to the Empire, Marcus had never seen a species so casually ready for war. As he finally turned to leave, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Empire was about to learn a costly lesson about underestimating primitive species. The humans had warned them. Soon, the Empire would wish they had listened. The mining colony on Mars' largest moon, Phobos, was a testament to human engineering. Massive drilling machines carved deep into the moon's surface, while cargo ships constantly moved between the colony and Earth, carrying precious metals and minerals. On this ordinary day, the colony's radar operator Tom noticed something unusual on his screen. "Sir, multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel," he reported to Base Commander Mike. "They're not ours." Commander Mike watched as 15 Imperial warships appeared near Phobos. Their sleek designs and gleaming hulls stood in stark contrast to the bulky, practical human vessels. The Imperial ships were beautiful, like deadly silver arrows against the black of space. The main screen lit up with a transmission. An Imperial captain appeared, his expression filled with contempt. "This is Captain Smith of the Imperial Fleet. Your mining operation violates Imperial space. You have 1 hour to evacuate before we cleanse this area." Commander Mike's face hardened. He opened a secure channel to Earth Defense Command. "This is Phobos base. We have Imperial warships threatening immediate attack. Requesting instructions." The response came quickly. "Hold position. Help is coming. Initiate Defense Protocol 0. The Imperial captain watched with amusement as the primitive human ships began what appeared to be a disorganized evacuation. Cargo vessels and mining ships scattered in different directions, their movements seemingly random and panicked. "Pathetic," the captain said to his bridge crew. "They run like scared animals. Begin the cleansing operation." The Imperial ships moved forward, their energy weapons charging. The first shots fired, beautiful beams of plasma that could cut through most known materials. But something strange happened. The human ships, those primitive vessels the Empire had dismissed, suddenly changed course with impossible speed. What had looked like panic was actually a carefully choreographed dance. The scattered ships now formed a perfect attack pattern. "Sir," an Imperial officer shouted, "those cargo ships, they're dropping their outer shells." The bulky cargo vessels shed their fake covers, revealing heavily armed warships underneath. Before the Imperial fleet could react, space filled with thousands of small objects. "What are those?" the captain demanded. His answer came in a series of devastating explosions. The small objects were nuclear-tipped missiles, a weapon the Empire had long ago abandoned as too primitive. The Imperial ship's energy shields, designed to stop plasma and laser weapons, proved nearly useless against the brute force of nuclear detonations. Commander Mike watched from Phobos base as the careful Imperial formation broke apart. 3 Imperial ships disappeared in bright flashes as nuclear weapons found their marks. The others tried to regroup, but now faced a new threat. Human warships appeared from behind Mars, having used the planet's magnetic field to hide their approach. These weren't the primitive vessels the Empire had seen before. These were Earth's real warships, built in secret underground facilities, equipped with weapons designed specifically to counter Imperial technology. "This is Admiral Stone to all human forces," a familiar voice broadcast on all channels. "Show them why we warned them to run." The battle that followed would shock the Empire to its core. Human ships fired railguns that launched projectiles at incredible speeds, tearing through Imperial armor. Electromagnetic pulses disrupted Imperial targeting systems. Swarms of automated drones overwhelmed their point defense systems. In 20 minutes, it was over. The mighty Imperial battle group lay in ruins. Of 15 ships, only 3 managed to escape back into faster-than-light travel, all of them heavily damaged. Back in the Imperial capital, High Commander Marcus received the battle report with a grim expression. The humans hadn't just defeated an Imperial battle group. They had done it with careful planning and weapons specifically designed to counter Imperial technology. This wasn't the response of a primitive species. This was the work of a civilization that had been preparing for war since the moment they detected the first Imperial scout ships. In Earth's main defense command center, Admiral Stone drafted a new message to the Empire. "We warned you once. This was your lesson. The next battle won't be a lesson. It will be a war. Choose wisely. The spark had been lit. Soon, the galaxy would burn with a war unlike any the Empire had ever faced. The humans had spent their entire history preparing for this moment, and they intended to show the Empire exactly why they should have heeded that first warning to run. The Imperial Council chamber was no longer filled with the quiet confidence of before. Instead, angry voices echoed off its ancient walls as reports from the outer systems continued to arrive. Another border station gone, one counselor shouted, throwing a data pad onto the table. The humans aren't just defending, they're attacking. 3 mining colonies lost, 5 outposts destroyed, and 2 supply lines cut in just 2 days. High Commander Marcus stood silently, watching the tactical display as more red dots appeared, marking human victories. What they had discovered was terrifying. Those primitive ships and bases they'd observed weren't the extent of human military power. They were just decoys. "Show them," Marcus ordered, and new images appeared on the main screen. The Council fell silent as they watched footage from a survived Imperial scout ship. Massive warships emerged from hidden bases inside asteroids. Entire fleets appeared from behind planets where Imperial sensors had detected nothing. The humans had built a war machine in secret, all while showing the Empire only what they wanted them to see. Head Counselor Robert's hands shook as he reviewed the latest intelligence. How did we miss this? Marcus stepped forward. We saw what they wanted us to see. Those orbital stations, decoys, those primitive ships, a distraction. While we watched their visible industry, they built shipyards inside moons and asteroids. They hid their real fleet using technology specifically designed to fool our sensors. The tactical display updated again. A new recording showed a human attack on an Imperial fortress. The Empire watched in horror as human ships launched what looked like small pods toward the fortress. Imperial defenses ignored them, programmed to target only ships and weapons. Those pods, Marcus explained, contained nothing but simple metal balls and rocks. When they broke apart near our fortress, they created a cloud of debris moving at extreme speeds. Our energy shields can't stop simple rocks moving that fast. The fortress was torn apart by what amounts to gravel. Another counselor stood up. "Surely our numerical advantage is meaningless," Marcus interrupted. "We just discovered that Earth isn't their only world. They have colonies throughout their system, hidden from our scans. Their industrial capacity is," he paused, "it's beyond anything we imagined. They can replace ships faster than we can destroy them." The council chamber erupted in chaos again as more reports arrived. Human forces had begun targeting Imperial supply lines with small, fast ships that appeared and disappeared before defenses could respond. They weren't trying to hold territory. They were systematically weakening the Empire's ability to fight. "There's more," Marcus said quietly, but his voice cut through the noise. "We found out why their ships can appear seemingly anywhere." He pressed a button, and a new image appeared. It showed a simple device, hardly bigger than a hand. "What is that?" Head Counselor Robert asked. "They call it a compass," Marcus replied. "It's a backup navigation system that uses local stars for positioning. Our first attacks targeted their communication networks, thinking it would blind their ships. But every human vessel can navigate without any external help. They'd been fighting wars for so long, they never rely on just one system for anything." The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. The Empire's standard tactic of destroying communication and navigation systems was useless against an enemy that could fight virtually blind. A young counselor spoke up. "But we've faced rebellions before. We've crushed stronger enemies." "No," Marcus cut in. "We haven't. Every species we fought achieved unity before reaching space. Their wars were ancient history. But humans, they developed everything. Their technology, their tactics, their industry, through constant conflict. They've spent thousands of years fighting themselves, perfecting the art of war. And now," he gestured at the tactical display, now showing dozens of ongoing battles. Now they're united, and they're using everything they learned against us. Head Counselor Robert slumped in his chair. What can we do? Marcus looked at the latest battle reports coming in. Pray, he said simply. Pray that they're still willing to accept peace, because we're quickly running out of options to stop them. Outside the council chamber, the news of Imperial defeats spread across the galaxy. The Empire's greatest mistake wasn't attacking Earth. It was giving humanity a reason to show why they had warned them to run. The Imperial battle station hung in orbit around one of their core worlds, its massive form dwarfing the ships around it. Inside, Admiral Jack of the Imperial Third Fleet watched the latest battle recordings with growing horror. The footage showed an Imperial heavy cruiser, one of their most powerful warships, facing off against 3 smaller human vessels. The cruiser fired its advanced plasma cannons, but the human ships simply split apart into smaller sections, dodging the energy beams with ease. They built their ships to break into pieces on purpose, Jack's tactical officer explained. Each section is a fully functional combat unit. We're not fighting one ship. We're fighting 5 or 6 every time we engage just one of their vessels. New alarms blared through the station. Multiple human ships detected. An officer shouted, They're coming out of the sun's corona. Jack rushed to the main viewport. Sure enough, human warships emerged from their hiding place in the star's burning atmosphere. Their hulls glowed red-hot, but they seemed undamaged. The Empire had always considered such a maneuver impossible. The heat would destroy any ship, but the humans had simply built their vessels to withstand it. Launch all fighters, Jack ordered. Raise shields to maximum. The space around the station erupted in combat. Imperial energy weapons lit up the darkness, while human ships responded with their own unique arsenal. Instead of elegant energy beams, they fired clouds of superheated metal, streams of nuclear-powered plasma, and swarms of autonomous combat drones. Sir, an officer called out, they're using our own shields against us. Jack watched in dismay as human ships fired specially designed projectiles that passed through the Imperial energy shields, then exploded inside the protected space. The Empire's most advanced defensive technology had become a liability. Their shields were trapping the explosive force inside, magnifying the damage. The battle station's sensors detected new threats, thousands of small objects moving at incredible speeds. Kinetic bombardment incoming. Someone shouted. These weren't bombs or missiles. They were just solid metal rods, accelerated to near light speed. When they hit their targets, their sheer momentum released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. How do we stop them? An Imperial captain asked desperately. We don't, Jack replied grimly. They're too small and too fast for our point defense systems. And they're just metal. There's nothing to detect, nothing to hack, nothing to disable. The station shuddered as the first impacts hit. Imperial ships began exploding as the relativistic projectiles tore through them like paper. The humans had taken one of the simplest weapons possible, throwing rocks, and turned it into an unstoppable force through sheer speed and numbers. But the real shock came when the humans revealed their next weapon. Small devices attached themselves to Imperial ships, and suddenly their crews started acting strangely. Some ships started firing on their allies. Others simply shut down. They're using sonic weapons, the medical officer reported. Frequencies that affect brain function. Our crews, they can't think straight. Some are hallucinating. Others are passing out. Jack stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The humans were using every possible method of attack. Physical, electromagnetic, psychological, even biological. They had no concept of honorable combat or acceptable warfare. To them, any weapon that worked was a good weapon. New contact, an officer shouted. Massive energy signature. A human dreadnought dropped out of faster-than-light travel. It was ugly by Imperial standards, a brutish thing of thick armor and exposed weapon systems. But its size, it was larger than anything the Empire had ever built. How? Jack whispered. How did they build something that big in secret? The answer came from his intelligence officer. They didn't build it in secret, sir. They built it in plain sight. We thought it was a space station under construction. They showed us exactly what they were doing, knowing our arrogance would blind us to the truth. The human dreadnought opened fire, and Jack finally understood the true horror of human warfare. The ship carried every weapon humans had ever invented, from ancient ballistic weapons to modern nuclear devices. It was a mobile platform of pure destruction, built by a species that had spent its entire history preparing for war. As his battle station began to break apart under the assault, Jack sent one final message to Imperial High Command. They were never primitive. We were just too proud to see it. They didn't just master war, they evolved with it. And now we're paying the price for our ignorance. The Battle of Proxima Centauri would go down in Imperial history as the day everything changed. The Empire had gathered its largest fleet ever, 5,000 warships, to crush the human advance once and for all. High Commander Marcus himself led the operation, determined to end this war. All ships in position, his fleet commander reported. The humans have nowhere to run. We've blocked all escape routes. Marcus stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the tactical display. The human fleet looked small compared to his massive armada, only about 800 ships. This would be a quick victory. Enemy fleet is launching fighters, an officer announced. But something's wrong. These readings don't make sense. Marcus leaned forward. The human fighters weren't attacking. They were spreading out in a strange pattern. Suddenly, his tactical officer's face went pale. Sir, those aren't fighters. They're nuclear bombs disguised as ships. Before Marcus could react, space lit up with thousands of nuclear explosions. The massive burst of radiation and electromagnetic energy blinded Imperial sensors. When the screens cleared, Marcus saw something impossible. Where there had been just 800 human ships, now there were thousands. The first fleet had been a hologram, designed to hide the real attack force positioning behind it. How many ships? Marcus demanded. 3,000 human warships detected, his sensor officer replied. They were hiding in plain sight, using the radiation from their nuclear reactors to mask their numbers. The human fleet split into 3 groups. The first group launched what looked like clouds of metal dust into space. The second group fired energy weapons into these clouds, turning them into superheated plasma that Imperial shields couldn't stop. The third group didn't attack at all. They simply waited. Marcus watched as his carefully planned formation broke apart. Imperial ships struggled to target the humans through the plasma clouds. Every time they thought they had a clear shot, the target would turn out to be another hologram. Sir, his communication officer shouted, we're detecting transmissions from inside our ships. The humans, they hid tiny computers in the replacement parts we bought from neutral traders. They're hacking our systems. Ship after ship began shutting down as their systems turned against them. Life support failed. Weapons powered down. Engines stopped responding. The Empire's mighty fleet was being defeated not by superior firepower, but by tiny computers smaller than a finger. The third group of human ships finally moved. They weren't warships at all. They were carrier vessels. Each one launched hundreds of automated drones. These small, unmanned craft carried no weapons. Instead, they simply rammed into Imperial ships at near-light speed, their kinetic energy tearing through even the strongest armor. We've lost a third of the fleet, someone reported, their voice shaking. Another third is disabled. The rest are retreating. Marcus finished. He watched as his remaining ships fled in panic, their formation completely shattered. In just 1 hour, the largest fleet in Imperial history had been broken. But the humans weren't finished. As the Imperial ships retreated, they discovered that the humans had positioned jump gate disruptors along their escape routes. The devices forced Imperial ships to drop out of faster-than-light travel at specific points. points where more human forces waited. Marcus received a transmission from Admiral Stone. "You still haven't learned. We don't just fight battles. We design entire wars. Every retreat route you might take, every fallback position, every possible strategy. We planned for all of them. We've been playing this war game for centuries among ourselves. Did you think we wouldn't be ready for you?" Looking at his tactical display, Marcus finally understood. The humans hadn't just prepared for this war. They had prepared for every possible way it could be fought. Each Imperial tactic was met with a counter-tactic designed specifically to defeat it. Each Imperial technology faced a human weapon built to exploit its weaknesses. As his flagship limped away from the battlefield, Marcus sent a message to the Imperial Council. "We must sue for peace. The humans don't just wage war, they perfect it. Every battle we lose teaches them more about how to defeat us. The longer we fight, the stronger they become. We didn't just start a war. We awakened a species that has spent its entire existence preparing for this moment." The Battle of Proxima Centauri marked the beginning of the end for the old empire. The age of unchallenged imperial dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun. The imperial capital world was in chaos. News of the defeat at Proxima Centauri had spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Outside the imperial palace, thousands of citizens gathered, demanding answers about the war they were now losing. Inside the council chamber, the mood was even worse. Head Counselor Robert watched as system after system declared their independence from the Empire. The holographic map before him showed dozens of Imperial worlds turning from gold to red as they broke away. 3 more border systems have signed peace treaties with the humans, and 8 reported. They're offering protection to any world that leaves the Empire peacefully. Robert slammed his fist on the table. Protection. From their own empire. "No," said a quiet voice. High Commander Marcus entered the chamber, looking older than his 10,000 years. "Protection from what's coming next." The main screen activated, showing a transmission being broadcast across all Imperial channels. It was Admiral Stone's original warning message from before the war, but now it played alongside footage of human victories. Each battle showed a different aspect of human warfare: their cunning, their brutality, their efficiency. "The humans aren't just broadcasting our defeats," Marcus explained. "They're teaching our worlds how to fight like them. Every system that breaks away gains access to human military knowledge. They're not just defeating us. They're turning our own people against us." New reports flooded in. Imperial colonies were revolting, using tactics they learned from human broadcasts. Trade routes were being cut off by former Imperial ships now flying human colors. The mighty Empire was being dismantled piece by piece. "We just intercepted this," an intelligence officer said, playing a new transmission. The screen showed thousands of human ships in orbit around Earth. But these weren't warships. They were cargo vessels, mining ships, and construction platforms. While fighting the Empire, humans had never stopped building. Their industry had only grown stronger. "That's not the worst part," the intelligence officer continued. He zoomed in on certain ships. "Look at their designs." Robert's face paled. The new human ships incorporated Imperial technology, improvements they had made during the war. They hadn't just fought the Empire. They had studied it, learned from it, and adapted its best features into their own vessels. "How many ships do they have now?" someone asked. "We stopped counting," Marcus replied grimly. "Their construction rate exceeded our ability to track them 2 weeks ago. They're building ships faster than we can update our intelligence reports." The council chamber's doors burst open. A group of civilian leaders entered, led by people from the Empire's wealthiest trading worlds. "We're done," their spokesperson announced. "The trading worlds are seceding from the Empire. We've already signed agreements with Earth." Robert stood up. Outrage. "Traitors. You would abandon the Empire that protected you for 10,000 years." "Protected us?" The spokesperson laughed. "The humans offered us something better than protection. They offered us growth. Their technology, their manufacturing methods, their work ethic. They're sharing it all with anyone who joins them peacefully. More reports came in. The humans had begun offering their medical technology to former Imperial worlds. Planets that had relied on expensive Imperial treatments could now produce their own medicines. Colonies that had depended on Imperial supplies were learning human methods of self-sufficiency. Marcus watched it all with a mix of admiration and horror. "We thought they would destroy the Empire," he said quietly. "Instead, they're replacing it. Every world that joins them grows stronger. They're not just winning the war. They're making our own people want them to win." The final blow came when several Imperial fleet commanders announced their defection. They had seen enough of human warfare to know the Empire couldn't win. More importantly, they had seen how humans treated their allies, with respect and support, not the Empire's usual demands for obedience. Robert sank into his chair as the reality became clear. The Empire wasn't just losing a war, it was losing its very reason to exist. The humans had offered the galaxy a choice: adapt or fall behind. "What do we do now?" someone asked. Marcus looked at the continuing broadcasts of human technological and industrial might. "What we should have done from the start," he said. "Listen to their warning. Because they're not just defeating us in battle, they're showing everyone in the galaxy why we should have run when we had the chance." The Empire was breaking, not with a final battle, but with the quiet realization that humanity had created something better than Imperial rule. They had created hope. 1 year after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, the Great Hall of Earth's United Defense Force headquarters hosted an event that would change galactic history. Representatives from every major world, including the former Empire, gathered to sign the Galactic Cooperation Treaty. High Commander Marcus, now representing what remained of the Empire, stood at the signing table across from Admiral Stone. The two men who had led opposing sides of the war now faced each other as equals. "Before we sign," Marcus said, "I must know one thing. You could have destroyed us completely. Why didn't you?" Admiral Stone smiled slightly. "Because destruction is easy. Building something better, that's the real challenge. We didn't want to rule the galaxy. We wanted to change it." The main screen showed live feeds from across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, people watched as their representatives prepared to sign the treaty. But more importantly, they watched the changes already taking place. Former Imperial worlds now hosted human-design shipyards. The same industrial might that had built Earth's war machine was now creating ships for peace and exploration. Trade vessels moved freely between systems, carrying not just goods but knowledge. "The terms are simple," Stone announced to the gathered assembly. "Every world maintains its independence. The human industrial system will be shared with all. Our medical technology is available to everyone. And most importantly, our warning system goes into effect immediately." This last part was what had convinced even the most hesitant worlds to join. Humanity's approach to first contact would now protect all worlds. No species would face what Earth had faced, the threat of a more advanced civilization demanding submission. Marcus watched as the first human teaching centers opened across former Imperial space. They weren't just sharing technology. They were sharing their way of thinking. Their drive to improve, to compete, to never accept good enough was spreading. 6 months ago, a representative from a former Imperial world spoke up. "We built ships the way we had for thousands of years. Today, using human methods, we build them in half the time, at a quarter of the cost, and they work better." The screen showed more images from across the galaxy. Former Imperial citizens learning human manufacturing techniques. Worlds that had once depended on Imperial technology, now producing their own advanced devices. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had thought possible. "But what about war?" someone asked. "What happens when conflicts arise?" Admiral Stone pointed to a new facility in orbit around Earth, the Galactic Defense Academy. He explained, "We're teaching everyone how to defend themselves. No world should ever be helpless again. But more importantly, we're teaching them when not to fight. Humanity learned its lessons about war the hard way. We're sharing those lessons too. The treaty signing began. As each representative stepped forward, they received not just a document, but access to humanity's vast database of knowledge. 10,000 years of imperial rule had brought stability through control. Humanity offered something different, growth through cooperation. And aid approached Marcus with surprising news. "Sir, remember those primitive-looking human ships we first saw? We finally figured out why they looked that way. They were testing different designs, watching how we would react to each one. Everything we saw, everything we dismissed as primitive, it was all part of their evaluation of our technology." Marcus shook his head in amazement. Even before the war, humans had been thinking steps ahead. They hadn't just prepared for war, they had prepared for peace that would follow. As the final signatures were added to the treaty, Admiral Stone addressed the assembly one last time. "A year ago, we warned the Empire to run. Today we invite everyone to join us in running. Not away from conflict, but toward a better future. We spent our history learning the cost of war. Now we'll spend our future teaching the value of peace." The Great Hall erupted in applause. Across the galaxy, celebrations began as a new age dawned. The empire that had ruled for 10,000 years was gone, replaced not by a new empire, but by something unprecedented. A galaxy of independent worlds, united by human innovation and determination. Marcus turned to Stone after the ceremony. "You knew, didn't you? From the very first warning, you knew how this would end." Stone nodded. "We didn't want subjects or servants. We wanted partners. The Empire taught worlds to obey. We'll teach them to grow. That's the real victory, not defeating an empire, but building something better in its place." The war that began with a warning to run had ended with an invitation to stay and build a better galaxy together.